Hello everyone, my name is Miles and today we're going to be learning about tequila. But before we do that, I want to kick it to my friend Mitch Brown. Mitch, can you hear me?
I certainly can. And can you hear me is the question.
Oh, I can hear you, Mitch.
Oh, good.
Go.
All right, thank you very much. Let me start out here with a little bit of a slide deck, guys. Many of you know Benjamin Franklin in the year 1789 wrote a letter in which he penned this quote: "Our new Constitution is now established and has an appearance that promises permanency, but in this world nothing can be said to be certain except death and taxes." While those things are sure, I believe that today I can add one more thing that is certain. It is not advisable to get in between a bunch of thirsty IT people and free tequila, so I shall keep my Advizex introduction short. All right, hopefully everybody can see the intro slide here. Can I get a verification on that? Yes. Eric, can you give me a nod if you can see this slide I'm presenting? Okay, great, thanks. So for those of you who don't know Advizex that well, for more than 40 years, we've been a leading technology provider of infrastructure and enterprise application solutions. We combine the expertise of our people with innovative technologies from our strategic business partners to solve complex IT issues impacting our clients' business. From the very beginning, our philosophy has been simple: making customers for life. This is only achievable by our commitment to honest business transactions, reliable advice, and professional service delivery to our customers. The question is, how do we do that? we have developed a 45-year reputation with 97% customer retention. We do that by providing not only a large suite of strategic and enterprise partners that we work with, but a large suite of integrated services that comprise a whole set of consulting and cloud managed services that we provide to our customers. We coordinate things through our exponential solutions that are focused on driving business value through optimizing time to market, strategic transformation, and automation throughout the IT lifecycle. We have a ton of expertise. We have more than 264 technologists, and we always have to add the plus because that number changes almost daily. And within our sales and technical teams, we have over 1,000 certifications across our OEMs. And for those who do know Advizex, but maybe are familiar with us primarily from our local offices, we are a global company, and yet we provide local support to our customer base. That customer base is pretty broad. At this point, we have 2,700 established customers across all major verticals. And we do a survey every year of our customers, and at this point, we are maintaining a comfortable 9 out of 10 customers would recommend us to others. And we hope that all of you will continue to do business with us. That excellence has been rewarded in the industry by the recognition that we've consistently received in the reseller and value-added market. So that's always good to see that we continue to do that. One of the things that I've noticed in my years at Advizex is that many customers are familiar with us primarily because of a couple of the major OEMs that we work with a particular customer. But I want to make sure everybody is aware of the way that we structure our partners. We have 3 strategic partners that we consider to be strategic. They comprise the majority of the business that we do from that large OEM perspective, and that's Dell Technologies, Hewlett Packard Enterprise, and VMware. But that is by no means, obviously, because we're going to talk about Nutanix today, the list of all of our partners. In fact, what's really cool about working with Nutanix is how you can very quickly see that Nutanix's strategy works very well with our strategic partnerships. And I know I can speak for quite a few people that we hope that someday we'll have to add a 4th column in here on our strategic partnerships. But in any customer base, we generally find that there's no one OEM that can provide all of the solutions the customer needs. And so that's why we have such a large base of technology partners that we leverage to help bring the solutions to our customers that their business needs. And again, those customers span a very large range of verticals. Probably every vertical you can think of is represented somewhere in this list of logos. But at the end of the day, it's not just about the technology partners that we have. It's really about our people and our ability to drive the solutions that are offered by our technology partners to real business value for our customers. And we do that according to this framework that you see on this slide. The adaptive infrastructure piece takes us down across your traditional infrastructure perspective. And what we strive to do is provide visibility to the value of automation and the business returns of the things that we typically do in an IT infrastructure. So we span these various areas: adaptive infrastructure, intelligent operations, and strategic transformation, and cloud managed services. What we do is we have a grid framework, and we have solutions developed and packaged across these vertical elements of the framework. And we categorize them as advisory services. These are the kinds of things where a customer can ask us, what are you seeing in the industry? What are other people doing in these areas? We do assessments where we can come in and look at a customer's environment, and we assess the situation that a customer is in and identify problems or weaknesses or future pitfalls that they may be heading towards. We then also provide a set of planning services where we can take a solution. If you work with us with assessments and advisory services, one of the outcomes is often a a vision for where you in your IT journey want to be, and then we can provide you a set of services to help plan how to get there in the most efficient and cost-effective manner. We also have design services to design complex infrastructures, jump starts, where we take packaged product builds and we kind of get a customer up and running as quickly as possible. We do design and deploys, where we're not only doing the design, but also the deployment and startup of more complex integrations, other implementation services, residencies, optimization, all the way up into our managed services catalog, where we can essentially help customers get out of the business of just doing IT. So many of our customers would rather spend their time working on the value propositions for their lines of business rather than keeping the lights on in IT, and that is a big part of our business. And we've expanded that into our cloud managed services, so that we're helping customers not only manage their IT infrastructure on-prem, but also in the cloud, and managing hybrid cloud automation capabilities as well. For customers who are just getting their toes into the kind of managed services arena, one of the things that we do is we try and take the headaches out of IT by doing monitoring as a service. That's where we are able to basically connect into your network and do all the monitoring and triaging of events for you. And then, as if that's not enough, we always offer custom scoping services, where essentially, if we can do it, we will be happy to do it for you. And that's basically your intro to Advizex, and I hope that was helpful, and I'd be happy to take any questions after we're done with the tequila. But for now, I'll hand it over to our next presenter, Eric, who is going to take us through the Nutanix value proposition.
Hey everyone, good afternoon. So let me share my deck real quick, put it in presentation mode. And myself, this presentation is the only thing standing between yourselves and tequila and hanging out with Miles. So I have some few slides, and I'm not gonna really talk in depth on a lot of them, just to give you a high level view. So, you know, we're here to talk about not only Nutanix, but from a hybrid cloud, and how our vision at Nutanix, really we can deliver that true hybrid cloud model. I mean, so if we look at this slide just from the basis of IT evolution, so it's really gone from infrastructure-centric environments to more service-centric, where we had our virtual servers, you know, lots of waste in the 80s with 20 to 30% utilization, just physical hosts, Sun Microsystems, Linux. I got my start in Linux on HPUX using Marconi management systems out of Italy and the UK. And then we've really gradually grown. You know, VMware came in the 2000s and really changed the world. You know, we talk a lot of Nutanix about our hypervisor and the things that we're doing, but we never discount VMware. They changed the world. We run VMware very well on top of our software. And then in the 2010s, we really brought to the cloud generation. You know, so HCI was born. Was born in the cloud, was born with Nutanix, and really eliminating those silos and those different cost challenges and operational challenges that you may have, having just different people to manage your environment, like storage guys, compute guys, et cetera, as well as networking on top of that. And then now we're in the multi-cloud generation. So there's a lot of IDC reports out there that really talk about hybrid cloud, you know, how users are consuming that. You know, the cloud necessarily isn't a destination. It's an experience, and there's reports that people are coming back from the cloud, but it's really how we manage that whole on-prem and public cloud environment, which really can bring that all together and make for a nice cohesive environment. And please, I have the Q&A open, so if anybody has any questions and watching it, please feel free to reach out, and I'll be more than happy to stop and answer your questions. So from an HCI perspective, hyperconverged infrastructure, it's really the foundation of the cloud. And Nutanix was essentially born in the cloud. You know, fundamentally speaking, our founder, Dheeraj, and a few others at Google really developed the Google file system. And that's where Nutanix was born. Google was sitting in Yahoo, running on NetApp, running on 3-tier, and they found that they couldn't scale. So they really took that. They got this team of doctors with our founder and former CEO Dheeraj, and they developed that distributed everything Google file system. They wanted to commoditize it, and Google said no, so they all left and they started Nutanix, and that's really where Nutanix got started. But if we look at Facebook, we look at Microsoft, we look at AWS, really it's all white box servers, pulling that all together on just x86 processors into a completely distributed everything, all based on web principles, no single points of failure. And that's really a differentiator with us, not only from a hyper-converged perspective, but comparing against our competition, because everything is software defined. Challenges with the cloud, I can attest to this. I just took the cloud practitioner exam for AWS. I have some cloud accounts for my Frame desktop as a service, and I was doing some work trying to just do some testing with some of our new app delivery mechanisms. And with that cloud practitioner exam, I could not deploy and connect to remotely my Windows server. So it took me quite a bit of time to get it done. Obviously, I got home and got there, but I landed the plane. But really, it's operational challenges for the cloud. Like, I mean, it's completely different. It's learning a new environment. You know, there's a lot of cloud skills, multi-cloud skills you need, and there's a networking component associated with that. And there's really a legacy drag and old thinking processes, you know, going from end-tier environments to the cloud. So from a journey perspective, and we look at the cloud, you know, first, and a lot of our customers, we find it's modernizing the infrastructure on-prem. Typically, and more often than not, we start with a small workload, and based on our web principles and linear scalability, we're able to move on and add more workloads and add nodes with no problem with one click. You know, possibly starting with VDI and then maybe adding big data, business critical applications. And then really that brings us to IT as a service, you know, CI/CD pipeline for development, you know, across multiple clouds. Databases as a service, you know, AWS has a nice platform for that. We also have our own with Era, which really brings one-click operations to the data center. And then cloud, you know, how do we take advantage of that? How do we use cloud native like Kubernetes, for example, and totally make a truly seamless hybrid cloud deployment from on-prem to the cloud itself? So just high level, couple of slides on Nutanix and HCI in general. So we're all familiar with N-tier, you know, really was great. It served us well for years. You know, expanding it might have been a bit of a science project, et cetera, like adding storage. You know, we'd have to calculate and make sure we were set up for the next 5 years. And really fundamentally, we took that and we combined that all into one platform. And then within that platform, it really allowed us to, you know, not only expand on Supermicro, but for different OEMs, like you saw on Mitch's slide, you know, Dell, HP, like we're very good partners with them. They OEM our software. Dell probably has 20% of our deployed clusters within the country, within the world. I was looking today. We have our own with Supermicro, where we just OEM their chassis. And from a Nutanix perspective, we're totally software, so we don't take any revenue on hardware. We just pass through the pre-negotiated discounts, especially with Supermicro and HPE. And then on top of that, it's all about us making the infrastructure invisible, collapsing it in an HTML5 managed interface, across the cluster with no single point of failure in a control plane, and allowing you hypervisor flexibility. So if you like ESXi, you like VMware, you know, we're not pushing you away from that. But we have our own included hypervisor called AHV. It's KVM based, and we just put a very elegant control plane on top of it, which is HTML5 based. It's really feature parity with VMware. We find that a lot of our customers, some will make the full switch, others will just run ESX and prod, and we could do cross hypervisor DR to another cluster or to the cloud. And then we also run Hyper-V, and then we have a Kubernetes as a service, which runs on the cluster itself. So another way to look at it, so, you know, from a physical perspective, you know, we have our storage at the bottom, our storage controllers, our storage network controllers. And what we did was we brought the drives and everything into single composable x86 servers. So it's all, you know, we form that cluster based on those servers. And to do that, really our secret sauce is that CVM on every node. So that runs our operating system, which we call the Acropolis operating system. Every node runs an instance of it. Again, removing that single point of failure. And that really allows us to do all native DR replication, native DR orchestration. So we can do one-click failovers to our cloud to another cluster, compression, deduplication, really protecting your data, working in small chunks. all those web principles and all software defined and self-healing. Again, with security at top of mind across the whole cluster. So out of the box, especially with AHV, we're completely hardened. And then with VMware, with a couple more steps, but I mean, we're completely hardened. We constantly do checks to make sure that we are secure. And really, Nutanix is bringing those cloud principles that we find, that customers find, that they are attracted to going to AWS or to Azure or GCP. It's really bringing that on-prem. So it's that complete web scale engineering, software defined across the whole platform. So if we lose a node, all the CVMs in the cluster are really going to work at recovering the data. And because we work in small chunks, it really enables us to do fast recovery. And then as we scale and add more CVMs to the cluster, our recovery times decrease because there's more CVMs working to recover the data. And it's all off-the-shelf hardware. So Supermicro, HP, Fujitsu, et cetera. And I'm just going to let this slide play out. So when I started 3.5 years ago, we were really working here at the bottom. Myself and my colleague out of Pittsburgh, Dave. So it was the Acropolis operating system, our hypervisor, which is included, and Prism, our control plane. And that's really what we were bringing to the market. And really the purpose of this slide is to show you that we're really a platform company now. So as we move up the stack, we have things like Flow, which I have a couple slides on, which is native microsegmentation within the platform. So there's no need to deploy NSX or Cisco ACI or Nokia Nuage with a complex BGP overlay underlay network. It's just all native and it's all GUI based, and we'll discover all your traffic patterns. You know, Veeam from a hybrid cloud, you know, telling you the costing of on-prem versus in the cloud, helping you save money in the cloud based on your workloads. You know, on average, our users will save 30%. And then we have file services. So again, I mean, NetApp, great piece of hardware, great solution. We brought that same functionality in the platform in software. So it's software defined, easily one-click scalable, and then objects. And then Prism Pro, a lot of the intelligence that comes with VMware really included native within the platform just by enabling it via license. And then Frame Desktop as a service. So, I mean, I could talk about this slide for hours, but really just to show you that we're a complete platform company. So diving into the hybrid cloud portion and you know, really the basis for this Tequila event, our first foray into hybrid cloud was Calm. So it's application automation, that's HCI, it's 3-tier, it's the cloud. So it's really taking care of your CI/CD pipelines, really helping you to automate your environment so that we have governance on our applications. So if you want to use, you know, a code repo or JFrog, once you push that new code, it's going to invoke Calm, and Calm will run the new task. So it's really automation for everything. It ties into VROPS, ties into Jenkins, GitHub, et cetera. Typically, when we first started, it had to be on Nutanix only. And now we've released it as a service as of last week. So you can go into mynutanix.com, sign up for Calm Software as a Service, and you can automate and deploy your workloads on Nutanix, on 3-tier in your environment, and to the cloud itself. So any of the big 3 providers, we will handle all the orchestration between those. From a Beam perspective, you know, bringing Beam into the picture, I said cost governance, security. This slide really combines with Calm to show you what it's going to charge. So when you're looking at Calm and you have, you know, an AWS deployment or Azure, as well as your on-prem infrastructure, we could tell you how much it's going to cost to put that workload based on your current negotiated rates with those cloud providers and your on-prem environment with Beam tied into Calm. So it's really going to help you to find the best place to deploy your workloads. And then that cost metering perspective, I mean, you don't need Nutanix to use Beam if you have a heavy cloud footprint. Like I said, on average, our users will save about 30% with their current cloud spend. We also help you with one-click security in the cloud, and then show you the chargeback. So, I mean, if you're multi-cloud, you could totally deploy that across the cloud, provide proactive budget alerts for anybody that may be deploying workloads. Just quickly to dive into Flow. So security, you know, again, top of mind, not only from a platform, but also from a network perspective within the cluster. So it's about building that zero trust environment, you know, helping to deflect ransomware. And with Nutanix Flow, we can really bring that on-prem, and it's all native to the platform. It's all graphical based, so it's not tabular like a common firewall. And it's going to give you that up to layer 4 east-west security. We've added a lot of functionality to it over the past 2 years. One of the big ones was especially for VDI. So we're very good at VDI. We cut our teeth on VDI. And when users log into VDI, they will actually join AD. We'll see what AD group they join to, and we'll apply them to a policy. So a developer can log in and not be able to talk to a marketing person's device. And then we've also added Flow Security Central. So Flow Security Central was part of Beam, and we've brought that on-prem. So we're going to look at your on-prem policies, give you recommendations for policies, as well as look at your cloud. So you may have an EC2 instance in AWS, for example, in which it'll give you like 2 or 3 alerts, which you need to secure them. And it could be a networking thing. Beam could give you a one-click operation to tighten it up, or they could give you the 5 steps to make it secure. So it's all about providing HIPAA, PCI, across your environments on-prem, both on-prem and in the cloud. From a Xi cloud service, Xi is our cloud. So we have some data center space across the world. And our first foray into our own cloud offering was DR as a service. So it's truly providing that one-click DR orchestration across the cloud and enabling users to experience the same operating system on-premise as they do in the cloud. And that is really our Acropolis. It's extending it across clouds. It can be AHV or ESX on-prem. We could do cross-hypervisor DR. We can do testing as often as you want, not touch your production workloads, and you could fail over as often as you want with different service levels. It's really just putting the SLA on us. We're one of the only companies in the cloud that provides a cloud managed service that has our SLA published on our website. So we guarantee within 2 hours, we'll have all of your workloads up. And we can provide you near sync 1-minute RPOs if that's required. Another cloud service that we have from a hybrid cloud is XiFrame. So XiFrame is our desktop as a service. Was born in the cloud. The control plane lives in AWS. The beauty of Frame compared to some of the Citrix, Vue, for example, I mean, those are great applications for VDI, lots of very feature rich, is that we manage the whole backend for you. So we do the upgrades. Every Thursday, it's very cloud centric. So you're going to get upgrades that you might not know about and have different features to, to look at what your users are doing. And you can deploy across the cloud. So it's cloud native, very flexible, very agnostic to the different multi-factor authentications, different cloud provider storage providers, if you will. So Dropbox, Google, if you want to tie OneDrive to it. Really simple. Runs on AHV, and then it runs in the big 3. Within about an hour, you can have a complete desktop pool deployed to your users, all in the cloud. As you can see here, here's an example of just how simple it is. And like really, this is managing our golden image here. Like to manage our golden image, you launch it, you install your applications, power it down, publish it to your users. The next time they log in, they may have AutoCAD 2020 on there. It's totally GPU intensive. So we have good partnerships with CAD, with SolidWorks. We run the whole Autodesk conference on Frame on laptops through a browser. We use the same protocol that YouTube and Netflix use, so H.264, and it really allows us to send those 3D graphic workloads, or you can stream Falcon and the Winter Soldier, so this must be an updated slide, to your desktop and really experience it like you're sitting on-prem or to a high-powered machine. And then as we move into the cloud, we've started on-prem going to the cloud, just doing backups. And so that was with our Cloud Connect. So we could connect to Azure or AWS, spin up one of our CVMs in there, and then we could do async replications to the cloud. We couldn't spin those workloads up out there, but it really allowed us to do backups and provide a tertiary backup to give maybe 3-2-1 best practice rules for some of our customers. About a year and a half ago, we went GA with our first Nutanix clusters, really as a service. So it's us using our software and creating bare metal Nutanix clusters on AWS. Azure is coming soon. We're really being pushed to get this complete. We hope it's going to be early access here in the next few months, going GA end of 2021, early 2020. But really, if you compare us to, say, VMware Cloud, like with VMware, you need NSX. You need to create it, the billing's all handled by VMware. They give you the services. You need NSX to talk to EC2. We took a quite different approach. We're truly trying to keep that one-click simplicity with Nutanix. You really go into My Nutanix, you sign up for it, you put in your credentials for your VPC, and we use your existing VPC and VPN connection to on-prem to spin those bare metal instances up. So we can have 3 nodes running in AWS in about an hour and a half after you put your credentials and information in. The beauty of it is we've taken our network interfaces and we've made it so that we can connect to those EC2 instances on the same VPC, for example, and really give you a low latency connection. One of the cool features I think about clusters is that we've created an API where we're constantly checking the health of the bare metal host that AWS gives us. And if we detect a problem, we are going to eject that host from a cluster, do our standard HA that the operating system will do, moving the VMs off it, and pick a new host within another rack within that availability zone. So it's really giving you the best of both worlds. There's really a great TCO with running clusters on Amazon, especially as you grow, as well as with Azure, just based on the micro waste from a compute perspective that you would have with those instances in the cloud. And it's all meant to extend your security posture, really create a unified management platform across all the clouds. So there's no middle layer between on-prem and AWS. It's the same look and feel as you have on-prem. And like I said, that security posture for your workloads, if you're using Nutanix Flow, really extends from on-prem to the cloud. You get all your container services that you would have. You can use our native file services. And then if you think of like a large big box retailer, for example, come September, they're going to need about 50 nodes to support their website just based on the Black Friday traffic, for example. They can spin it up in clusters, and then after Christmas, they can hibernate those clusters and they go away, and they're backed up to S3. Then come back next September, they can just respin them up and as a pay-as-you-go instance. And then just two more slides. So this is from one of our Nutanix vision slides. I'm not going to go through this. This is crazy, but really just shows our vision of really that hybrid cloud, taking your primary sites with your hypervisor files, your backup and data recovery, as well as your security, with objects, as you see here. There's a great story around objects and using like software providers like Veeam, Haiku, Commvault, to really leverage those S3 backups to give you that immutable backups on-prem using a scalable software-defined object storage. And then as you can see down here, all of our as-a-service platforms, as well as the clouds that we're compatible with. If you'd like to meet up with us and follow this meeting, be happy to dive through all this. But just to give you an idea, really our vision is to be one operating system extended across all clouds, extending and making it simple, one click, and extending that posture and that look and feel that you have. From just a customer perspective, Gartner, we've been one of the leaders in Gartner for the last 8 years. We really invented the quadrant for HCI. Everybody thought we were crazy, and now we're not invited to VMworld anymore because they're one of our biggest competitors. 18,000 plus trusted customers. I'm sure we just ended our quarter. That number is going to be over 19,000 here by the end of the month when we announce it. And then this Net Promoter Score is super important. So our support is all level 3 engineers. When you call support, the person that answers the phone is going to be on the WebEx or Zoom that is going to help you solve your problem. So there's no need for you to be a command line expert. Let our support handle it. So we're very proud that our Net Promoter Score is plus 90. The industry average in HCI is about 30 to 40. And so we've consistently been there from a support perspective. And then we have 97% customer satisfaction. So, but please feel free. I mean, I know I didn't stop, ask any questions, and went through a lot of information, but really just to show you that we are hybrid cloud, we are a platform company, and we're really work well with Advizex and have been over the past few years. So with that being said, if anybody wants to put any questions in Q&A, I'll be more than happy to answer them. And I don't want to keep you from Miles and let him do the tequila tasting. And then in addition, they're going to go through and they're going to put everybody's camera on. And so you'll all be made panelists so that we can interact over a webcam, if you will. You could turn it off if you want. So it's fielder's choice if you want to do that. So go ahead, Miles. Take it away. Everybody came here for you, not for me and Mitch.
Hey, thanks, Eric and Mitch, for that presentation. That was great. I feel like every time I hear a presentation from tech companies, I learn more every time. So this is good stuff. And now I get to teach you about tequila. So feel free to turn on those cameras. I like to see who I'm talking to as you start coming in here. I like seeing all the pretty faces. You know, it is Cinco de Mayo and it is a party, so we should be able to see each other. And also feel free, if you have any questions, I'll take brief breaks to get some Q&A, and you can ask me questions, you can shout it out. Remember, this is an interactive tasting, so don't feel like you have to be stuck in Zoom, hiding in your office wherever you are. Now, did everybody get the boxes? We all have our tequilas in front of us. I know I can see a couple of faces. I'm hoping to see some more, maybe a thumbs up. So a couple of people, I got some thumbs up. This is good. All right, getting some more faces. I love seeing faces. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. All right, so I was gonna ask a question to the group. Who here drinks tequila? And you can shout it out if you're hiding behind a camera, or you can, you know, just raise your hand or tell me what you like. Do we drink tequila? Do we like tequila? Yes?
Yeah, woo!
Yeah, you like
Love
tequila?
it.
Remember, it's Cinco de Mayo. We're celebrating here, right? We're having some cocktails. You know, I know we were in work mode, but we can indulge now, so it's a good time, right? Or maybe you're working and indulging at the same time. That's even better from the home. So we're going to talk about tequila today. Tequila is one of my favorite spirits to drink. I absolutely love tequila. And I'm going to talk a little bit about it, and we're going to sip and taste. But before we get started, I want everybody to grab your little bottle of Casamigos, and we're just going to do a quick cheers, because nothing helps get you started like a little tequila. So say a little salute to everyone. Thanks for being here today. Let's go ahead and take a little cheers. Cheers, guys. All right. That's tasty. Yummy. All right, so we're talking about tequila today. So tequila is going to come from Mexico. To be called tequila, it has to be from Mexico. There's 5 states in Mexico that are allowed to legally produce tequila. That would be Jalisco, Guanajuato, Tamaulipas, Michoacan, and Nayarit. So those are the 5 states that you can legally make tequila in. Tequila is made from agave. Agave, opposed to popular belief, is not a cactus. I know that some of us have learned that it may be a cactus, but it's not. It actually falls itself in the lotus family, as well as also has some roots in the asparagus family, which is very interesting. When we're looking at agave, agave can reproduce through seeds, or it can reproduce through rhizomes. Cutting a little clip, very similar to how you have succulents in your house. You cut a little bit off, you replant it, they start to root, and they grow. So we're gonna go. So once we have this agave, the important thing to note is to make tequila, it has to be Blue Weber agave. Okay. Now, why would we choose Blue Weber agave? I want to hear from you, friends. What do you think? Why would you use Blue Weber agave? Just shout it out there. Anybody? Best ideas. There are no wrong answers. Only fun answers.
Because there's no other kind.
Because there's no other kind. What else we got? Anybody else? That's it? Just it's the only kind? I mean, it's okay. Like, don't feel, this is not like a class. This is not like a class in school.
Sugar.
Like, what'd you say?
High in sugar.
High in sugar. Okay, we got Jim involved. Love it, Jim. What else we got? Anybody else out here? Why would we use Blue Weber agave? Sugar flavor. Okay, so an agave plant takes anywhere between 6 and 7 years to mature for Blue Weber agave. Now, for wild agaves and other agaves, this can go all the way up from 6, being the earliest that it will ripen, up to 52 years. Needless to say, if you were going to have a product that required 52 years to ripen, it'd probably be a bad business model. By the time your first bottles come out, you'd be ready to retire, right? So probably not the best idea. So we're using Blue Weber agave, one, because of the amount of juice that it has, right? So it has a fair amount of juice. Sugar is a good answer. It has good amounts of convertible sugars to alcohol, as well as the time that it takes to mature. So only 6 to 7 years. So we have this agave plant. It's in the field. It's growing. It's doing its thing. It's hanging out. And then we have to figure out, okay, it's not like an apple, right? So every fall we get an apple that falls off the tree and you go, oh, it's ripe. Got to pick those apples, right? How do we figure out an agave? Well, an agave has, if you look at the top of your, or look at your Casamigos bottle, it's kind of not the greatest picture of an agave, but you have to imagine out of the middle of that agave plant, you're going to have something called a quiote. And what happens is it looks like a gigantic asparagus that grows straight out of the middle of it. That is your indication that the agave is ready to be harvested. Essentially, it grows this quiote out and will actually blossom into a tree, have flowers, and then drop seeds for reproduction. So once we see that quiote coming out of the middle of it, that means it's ready to go because it's trying to reproduce. So we cut it. Then you have the gentlemen who are called the jimadores, who go into the fields with a tool called a koa. Looks like a flattened shovel that weighs about 3.5 pounds. That's sharp as a razor. Definitely want to be careful with that tool. It could hurt yourself. And they cut off the pencas, the leaves. And then what are we left with? We're left with the piña. The piña is the inner core part of the agave that looks like a pineapple. That's why we call it a piña. Now, we have to get the sugars to convert here, right? So how do we do that? We gotta cook it, right? So we have a couple of different ways we can cook the agave. We have an horno, which is an oven, typically made out of brick, steam injected, which allows you to get to nice high temperatures with the radiant heat from the brick. You get a nice roasting quality. So let's think of this in terms of cooking a chicken for your friends. A roasted chicken sounds really nice, golden skin, really crispy, really flavorful. We love it, right? Then you can have, like my grandmother used to do, you can use a pressure cooker, right? I think my grandmother used to pressure cook everything from greens to chickens to anything else you can imagine. If you couldn't pressure cook it, then it wasn't going to be a real meal. So she'd throw everything in the pressure cooker, and that's kind of what we're doing in the next step. This is called an autoclave. It's a gigantic pressure cooker, okay? So it's going to pressurize, cook these agaves. Now, getting a really good sweetness and flavor, but the problem is that it's not going to be nice and roasted, right? So it still tastes good. It's all right, you know, but it's not going to taste that good. And then the last way we can cook this agave is we use a method called diffuser method, which is probably the worst way. I'm sure some of you had tequila back in college and woke up the next morning wondering why you had such a raging headache. This is one of the reasons, one of two reasons why you might have a headache. The diffuser method is a way basically we're shredding up this raw agave, throwing it into a pot with water and boiling it. Needless to say, you're going to get some different phenolics and different compounds that come out of the agave that do not get cooked off appropriately and get stuck in your tequila, which are going to give you headaches. I.e. Jose Cuervo is a big company that does this. Pretty much any of the major big companies have a tequila that they're making in this method. Why would they do that? Because putting things in water, higher yields, you're transferring sugars, you make more money, right? So it's all about a money game. Then after that, we have to ferment it, typically going to be fermented in stainless steel. There are very few producers in Mexico that are going to be using concrete to ferment, but essentially we want a nice low and slow fermentation. Most companies will ferment for about 48 hours. The better companies will ferment for a couple of days. And when you're talking about the world of mezcal, I've seen it ferment up to 7 days. So really long, slow fermentations. The longer and slower the fermentation, the more of the negative things that come out of distillation actually get into the whiskey, okay, or into the tequila. They all start to break down as this fermentation goes, okay? Now, the first tequila we're gonna taste here is going to be Casamigos. I'm sure everybody knows this because of the silver fox George Clooney. His signature's on this bottle, although he no longer owns it. I'm hoping that in my older age that I can look like George Clooney. That would be my hope. I don't know if I'll get there, but I'm hoping that I do. But this is a great product. The thing that we're looking for, first thing on this bottle, if you see it, it says 100% agave azul, which means 100% blue Weber agave. The only other thing that you'll see, if you do not see that 100% agave on the label, that means it's a mixto tequila. Mixto tequila only has to be 51% tequila, and the rest of it can be neutral grain spirits, vodka. I mean, any alcohol that you can distill can be added into that mixto bottle and then sent off to you to drink, and then you have your great college days with that Jose Cuervo Gold, and you feel terrible, right? So we want to be looking for 100% agave. So let's go ahead and taste this first one again, and let's talk about it. So what is everybody smelling? Let's get your nose in there. Throw out some adjectives. Don't be afraid. I don't bite. I promise. I know that we're working from home, but I don't bite. You can talk to me.
Vanilla.
Vanilla. Great call. What else we got? Say booze?
The beach.
Does anybody smell alcohol? What was that?
The beach.
The beach. Ooh, great. I love that. My tequila smells like the beach. I like that. Let's give it a taste. What do we think? Do we like it? Do we hate it? Love it. Could be better. Definitely could be worse.
Smooth.
Awesome. Smooth. Okay, we like it. So the reason I like teaching about tequila is a lot of people don't get a chance to drink premium tequila, and I think Casamigos does a great job for what it is as a tequila. They're taking their agave from the highlands. So in tequila in Jalisco, we have two different areas: highlands, lowlands. Highlands tequila is more favorable to me. Does anybody get acid off of this? Is anybody like feeling acid when your mouth is when your like mouth waters? Does anybody feeling your like saliva glands going when you're drinking it? Right? So agave has some of the highest acid of any plant in the world. Very, very high acid. So high that if you harvest it, if you get some of the juices on your arm, you will break out in rashes. So the acidity, it's incredible, but it carries through to the end distillate, which is amazing. I really love this product. Okay, well, let's go on to the next one because we're going to talk about Reposado tequila. So everybody's looking at this Maestro Nobel Diamante, and they're looking at it and they're saying, well, it says Reposado, but it looks pretty clear to me, right? So the Diamante that they did at Dobel is essentially they're going to be aging this in European oak casks, and then they're going to be charcoal filtering it to remove all the color. But I want you to pay attention to the nose and the mouthfeel from it being aged in barrel. And to be a Reposado tequila means that it has to be, Reposado means rested, so it has to be aged in a barrel for up to 4 months. After 4 months to just under a year, you will call it an añejo tequila, and then anything over a year in barrel will be considered an extra añejo tequila. So what are we smelling here? Shout it out. Anybody getting vanilla, oak, spice notes, anything? I promise I don't buy it. I promise.
You know, almost
Not
like a
marketplace.
caramel.
Caramel, there we go. That's a good adjective. What else we got?
You definitely can smell the oak.
Definitely can smell the oak, right? For all my whiskey drinkers out there, can we smell the oak as well? Right, what do we think about the palate? Do we like it? Do we see the texture that it's getting from the oak? Maybe? Yes? Good. Okay, so we were stopped at the distillation process, right? So after we distill it, ferment it, we need to distill the product. We distill typically in pot stills. There are a couple companies out there that are doing blends of pot still distillation and column distillation. The biggest thing you need to know about that is pot still is going to add more flavor, whereas column stills are more for stripping out flavor and creating higher alcohol, but sometimes there's a benefit to blending the two together. Helps you with a lighter bodied tequila versus a more heavier bodied tequila. I would argue that both of these tequilas, the first tequila most certainly has more of a heavier body. The second tequila has more texture, but we talked about that being put in barrel. Now, the next one we're going to taste is Suerte. Suerte, I love Suerte Añejo. They're slow roasting this. It's a single distillation. It's small batch. They're talking about Tahona crushing, okay? So after we roast this agave, we have to figure out how we're going to crush it too. So traditionally, we would use a Tahona, which is a gigantic lava rock, okay? And we're going to be pulled by a donkey in a circle. Obviously, as traditional as that is and how romantic that is to make tequila, the likelihood is that's probably cost prohibitive to some people. So we've actually, in the modern world, have mechanic Tahonas where they roll around in a circle, gigantic machines. And if you actually get to go down to Patron at any point and you go to their hacienda, they really like Tahona, but they obviously make a lot of tequila. So they have lots and lots of Tahonas. They just kept repeating them and repeating them and repeating them. So they still use Tahona crush for all of the spirits that they're making. They also do a really great job at being sustainable. Anytime they're pulling agave out, they're putting it back in, and they're trying to run as close to it as a net zero carbon footprint at their distillery as possible. Okay, so definitely some cool stuff going down in tequila with some of these smaller producers. I mean, even for a big producer, Patron does a really nice job, but a lot of the smaller producers also are really focused on sustainability and giving back to the land and the community that they have. Now, this is Añejo tequila. If you look at it just on the site, you can obviously see that they're not using a lot of oak. Now, depending on how you like Añejo tequilas, to me, they can be very overly oaked, where you don't taste a lot of the tequila itself and you get more of the oak, which to me is not what I'm looking for. If I want to taste oak, I really want to taste bourbon, right? Because bourbon's going to have the oak, it's going to be big, you know, we're going to get all these deep flavors, so on and so forth. But when we're talking about tequila, tequila is fairly delicate. It's got really nice fruity notes, and to me, I just really like the taste of agave. So when we get into an añejo, it can be made in two different ways. If we look at this one, it's very light, so we're going to be using very used barrels, and it's not going to be overly oaked. For my friends who are tasting it right now, what do we think about this? We can smell the oak, but when we taste it, can we still taste the agave? What do we think? Yay, nay? Maybe so? Okay, yeah, so we got a nice little bit of oak in there. You get the toastiness, not too much vanilla, but very easygoing. So very smooth, but not aggressively oaked. Now, the last thing we're going to taste today is going to be espadín, which is going to be mezcal. Mezcal overall is going to be the name of the category. So anything made with agave is going to be considered a mezcal. When we're talking about mezcal as we see it here today, we're going to be talking about mezcal from Oaxaca, Mexico. And what that means is that it's from a very specific area and they use more wild agave. So espadín is a wild agave. There's hundreds of different types of agave from all over. The espadín is going to be very similar to the Blue Weber, where we're looking at a very low, short time for production. But the biggest difference is when we start getting into mezcal, instead of using a brick orno or the other methods that I had mentioned before, we're actually going to use an in-ground orno. So we're going to be building a nice fire, getting some coals going. We're going to put rocks over the coals, and then we're going to put the agave in, cover it with burlap, and then cover that with sand. So we're actually creating an in-ground oven, and it typically takes anywhere between 4 to 7 days to roast this agave into the ground. So a much different process, and I always have the conversation with people saying that they don't like mezcal because they think it's too smoky. For me, I think that mezcal, instead of using the term smoky because Scotch is smoky, I like to use the term like grilled, like charred. So think about like grilling notes, like when you char a steak, that kind of nice char you get of that browning that you get through that process. That's more of what I get from mezcal than it actually being really smoky. It's a really interesting thing to do an exercise where you can take like a Lefroy, a very peated Scotch from Scotland, and then taste some mezcal. And what you'll notice is that there's a huge difference between the amount of smokiness that you find versus roastedness and charred. So much different flavor profile. I also love the nose because mezcal has a combination of, some citrus notes, it has some floral notes, and then you do get that roasty kind of aroma. For my friends out there, have you ever had mezcal?
Nope.
No.
Yes. Yeah, we like it.
It's good.
Yeah, I like this. I have one. I have this bottle actually.
Oh, at your house?
Yeah.
Nice. Well, for any of my friends out there who haven't really familiarized themselves with mezcal, do you feel like, were you surprised by it in any way? Do you feel like by having the conversation of saying less smoky and more like grilled and charred, do we like that as an idea or a tasting note?
Yeah, I do. I feel like the black bottle was kind of threatening, so I was a little nervous to try it.
Because it's a black bottle, it seems threatening.
Yeah.
It's like the mystery potion in Alice in Wonderland. It says, drink me, and you're like, I don't know.
It's almost
have any
like when you get it's almost like the burnt ends on brisket, right? That they get nice and crisp. Yeah.
Absolutely. See, that's kind of what I'm talking about, is it's got that nice charness to it, right? Do we have any questions about mezcal or tequila or anything that I've covered thus far?
What's your favorite? Not of these, but of any tequila.
So when it comes to tequila, I would say that my favorite producer would be Fortaleza. When it comes to mezcal, I think mezcal, there's a lot of different ones out there on market, but currently one that I've been really enjoying is Las Grimas. They're out of Durango. So Durango is a little bit more like north of Jalisco. So you have Jalisco, you have Zacatecas, and then north of that, you have Durango. If you ever get a chance to go down to Mexico, typically if you go to a nice steakhouse in Mexico, in places like Mexico City or even in Guadalajara, you'll find that the steak that you get there is from Durango. So really big cattle farms out there. They're known for their cattle, but they also make some incredible mezcal. And the guys at Las Grimas, his family actually owns a very large cattle farm that they raise and they sell off. But they also make some delicious mezcals. But I like the kind of agave in general is like a sponge. just how it is. So as you can imagine, all the different years of different rain and it's pulling up the nutrients. The terroir, and terroir basically meaning the place that it's from, makes a very significant difference when we're talking about tequila or mezcal, because it really is going to add depth and flavor. And then the last thing I would say is raicilla. Raicilla is a mezcal, if you will, that's made outside of, made in the state of Jalisco, but outside of the tequila production areas. And these are typically a little bit more artisanal, very hands-on, single distillation, fermented for very long periods of time products. La Venenosa makes it an exceptional product. The Sierra del Tigre, which is an orange label, is probably one of my most favorites. Definitely one of those end of your life bottles that I would have at my deathbed for sure. What other questions do we have? Can you grow agave in your backyard?
What are some
you
mixed drinks you might recommend with various
some
types
mixed
of
drinks?
tequila? Yeah.
So, I mean, I really like, so mezcal old fashions are definitely the hit new thing for mezcal. I really like making any tequila based cocktail with like a ½ ounce of mezcal, just to kind of give it a little bit more smoky, roasty, especially if you like, for my friends out there that like spicy margaritas. So get a couple of jalapenos in there, you're shaking it up, a little bit of mezcal in there can really make the difference. So I really like that. For other tequila cocktails that I really enjoy, one that's kind of forgotten a lot is the El Diablo. El Diablo is essentially a Moscow Mule with tequila, but adding a little bit of a fruit liqueur. Typically it calls for, I like to use Combier Fruits de Rouge, but you would find Chambord would be one that you'd probably find most common. But it's a great cocktail for a hot summer day, as well as I'm a huge fan of Palomas. They're one of my favorite cocktails. I think that any place that has one, I'm pretty much ready to drink one.
Coming from a non-tequila drinker, the second and third ones were really smooth to me and lacked the typical like tequila bite to me.
Yeah, and honestly, I think the biggest thing that I try to educate everyone on is, you know, when you're getting into whiskey, you can find a really good bottle of whiskey at like 30 to 40 bucks, right? But and I would argue that, you know, the people searching for that Pappy Van Winkle out in the world, is Pappy Van Winkle that much better than a $40 bottle of whiskey? I would argue that, yes, it's a little bit nicer. It's got a little bit more of an age statement, but is it better? I would say that's personal opinion. But when it comes to tequila, spending a little bit more money is going to make the difference, because it's all about the processes that they're using. So if you're, like I mentioned earlier, Fortaleza tequila roughly sits on the shelf at $52 to $54 a bottle. Now it seems a little bit spendy, but they are going to be roasting in an Horno. They're going to be crushing with a Tahona. They're going to be open vat fermenting this, pot still distilling it. So every single part of the process is very taken care by hand. And even their agave, when their agave comes in from the fields, if they feel like any of the agave is not to their standards, they will actually throw it away. So it's one of those things where the higher dollars that you get into, in some cases, the tequila will be a lot better. Now, there are some products on the market. I think there's one that just came out this year called Casa Dragones. And I think it's a Blanco tequila that's at $250 a bottle. I would say that if you're starting to get that high up in pricing, that you're getting a little bit of a marketing ploy in there. I don't think that a really good bottle of tequila should not cost you more than $100. That being said, if you do start getting into like 1942 or some excessively aged tequilas, I can understand why the price goes up, because they're picking specific barrels. And if you're talking about something like Clase Azul does a really good job at sourcing their barrels and being very focused on not having it be too oaked and being balanced with the agave. So like I said, I don't get hosed by a company trying to sell you something in a crystal bottle that's all beautiful and well for like $800. You know, there's definitely some good products out there at that $50 to $75 range. A question out there was, is tequila better neater on the rocks? I think it's all to your personal preference. I'm sure all of you got to taste these today. Notice that these were really smooth to drink as is. You can only imagine adding a single ice cube would help mellow this down and add a little bit of water. Anytime we add a little bit of water to a spirit, we're going to really start getting a lot more flavor out of it. Just as it starts to change the composition of the the spirit itself. Remember that spirits are distilled, so there's no water left in it. And the second we introduce water back into it, we start seeing the proteins and things that have been distilled out start to break apart a little bit and start to open up. So that's where we're going to get some of those flavors. Do we have any more questions? I've got time for a few more. Dobell tastes like candy. Gonna revisit. I get that. It smells like Werther's butterscotch. Anybody else getting that off the Dobell? Werther's butterscotch? It was my favorite candy as a kid growing up. Go to grandma's house, there's always a bowl. Can I revisit what? Growing it at home, yeah. So agave you can grow at home, depending on where you're from. Obviously, it grows really well in the Southwest, parts of California. If you ever go down to like places like California, such as like Venice Beach or Santa Monica Beach, you'd be surprised how many agave plants you see just like popping up all over California. It does like a high desert or a dry area that's typically stays fairly warm, but has cool evenings. So even here in Colorado, we can grow agave fairly well, especially in Southern Colorado. But yeah, I mean, just remember that if you wanted to start growing agave, it's quite the process to do the harvest and everything else. So don't know if we'd be able to make a lot of tequila in your backyard. I got time for a couple more questions. These can be tequila related questions, alcohol related questions. I mean, you can ask certain personal questions.
What's your favorite food pairing with a tequila that's non-Mexican per se, right?
Do you mean like an agave, you mean like a domestically made tequila, shall we say?
So I like Casamigos Anejo
Okay.
a lot. And so like, if I was going to grill something to pair with that for dinner.
I mean, I really like grilled pork, like specifically tacos al pastor would be one of my favorites to do with that. You have a really nice rub on the outside of that pork, so you're going to get some really good spice flavors, but it's also cooked with pineapple, so you do get this like really good sweetness in the tacos, and then with the sweet onions and the cilantro with a little bit of that, like more of that vanilla that you're getting through in those añejos, I think would be very wonderful. But yeah, typically any kind of sweet rub pork, you know, I would kind of go that direction personally. You know, typically when you make carnitas, you would add orange juice to it as well. So you'd be like pulling apart that leg with like pieces like orange juice marinated in there. And I really think the añejos do well with anything roasted with fruit. I think does great.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Well, I hope you got to enjoy your tequilas. I know that some of us are still at work, and if you didn't get a chance to taste them with me now, I hope you get to taste them at the end of your day. But I want to say thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a wonderful Cinco de Mayo. Remember to imbibe safely, and if you're at home, imbibe as safely as you need to. So anyway, thank you so much for your time. Take care.